Salam, all my good friends. How are you all doing? I hope you're all fine. Welcome to the channel. My name is CrashWing, and today's video is about me ranking every game that I finished in 2024. It's a video I wanted to make last year as well for 2023, but I couldn't do it for a few reasons. Mainly that the roster of games I played was just mostly terrible, just bad. However, this year has been nothing short of fantastic, and I wanted to share my opinion on all of the great games I played this year. Of course, they're all just my opinions, and if you disagree, then feel free to leave your opinion down in the comments below. I'll be reading all of them. So let's not waste further time and get on with the video. Starting off with, of course, the worst game I have played in this year. Kung Fu Rabbit. The only reason I ever played this game was for an event, and I regretted downloading it as soon as I finished the first level. This is the most boring and bland game I have played in quite a long time, and it is worse than most of the bad stuff I played last year. And mind you, I played a lot of bad stuff last year. Now, I'll elaborate a bit more. The gameplay itself is very simple. You just jump around from platform to platform, collecting carrots, and your goal is to save your child from some evil dark thing. I don't know what it is. You will have sections where you wall jump and sections where the platforms phase in and out, and a few other generic obstacles. I don't like how the main character feels to control. He feels very heavy but also floaty, and while controlling him in midair, it's like having a seizure. Now, I'll credit some slack on the fact that it was originally released on mobile only, but the fact you have to pay for this game on the PS3 is just absurd. Thankfully, I have no morals and resorted to piracy, but I don't think anyone cares that I pirated Kung Fu Rabbit of all things. So yeah, overall, this game is a pile of crap that deserves to be thrown into a vat of acid immediately, and I'd honestly play Hello Neighbor 2 over this, which speaks a lot. Speaking of Hello Neighbor 2, we move on to Hello Neighbor 2. Now, I will say that this game is a lot better than its previous entry, but even a golden pile of shit is still a pile of shit. You can't polish it and present it as something new and fresh because underneath all that gold coating is the same exact mess. The gameplay is mostly the same. I mean, the puzzles are less confusing and make a lot more sense than whatever the fuck was happening in the first game. Seriously, how did they expect people to figure it out? The story itself, for once, I managed to understand, but it's not anything new or exciting. It's honestly very disappointing as well compared to just how ominous and exciting the basement was in the alphas. The game itself looks a lot better than the first entry, but it's still just the same old Hello Neighbor. Oh, minus the god awful platforming. The less focus on platforming in this game is its only saving grace because I despised that stuff in the first entry. But overall, yeah, not a fan. Maybe Hello Neighbor 3 will be the masterpiece we all deserve. Now we move on to a game that a very dear friend had recommended me. And I'm very sorry to that friend, but this just ain't it. Very sorry. Kirby's Dream Land will get some slack from me because it's the first entry in a series and it is on the Game Boy of all things. But I'd argue that we've had games that were better first entries in their respective series, like Mario, Pokemon, and Sonic. This one's just too simple. There's no copyability, it's just jumping around the levels with no new mechanics. The final boss fight is also just very poorly designed. The levels themselves have nothing unique to tell them all apart. It's just a very simple and boring game. It gets stale and repetitive quite quickly. Thankfully, the game itself is not very long. You can finish it in under an hour. But now for the positives, I really like the character designs. Yeah, that's kinda it. Overall, it's just an alright game. It's not bad, but I'd honestly rather play something else. Sorry, my friend. Oh, well. Hello again, Kirby. It seems like you did not attract me with your second chance as well. However, I will admit one thing, this game is a lot better than the original release, like by a long shot. It has those copy abilities which I really love the idea of. It's a really cool concept and is executed very nicely. You have like many different kinds of abilities. Some give you swords, some give you fire. You can also turn into a wheel and just roll around the area. It's really cool. The visuals are great. I love just how the game looks. And the character design once again is on point. The final boss this time around is really solid. Such a cool and unexpected boss. I did not expect something like this from Kirby. But unfortunately, it suffers from the same issue as the first game. The levels are just not very good or fun. The game gets stale and repetitive very early, and it's a shame because this game could have been ranked way higher, but the level design held it back tremendously. I think it's a lot better than the first game in so many ways, but as a later entry in the series, it just didn't bring the change that I wanted most, which was better level design. Sorry, Kirby. Maybe next time. Now, here is a game that sadly did not live up to my expectations, which is upsetting because I liked the idea of a futuristic Far Cry game that was supposed to be a parody of science fiction movies, but it just didn't hook me, sadly. While the dialogue itself was funny at times, the humor was very inconsistent, sometimes hilarious, sometimes cringe, and that may have been intentional, but it's still something that I didn't like about the game. The plot itself, I don't remember anything at all, I'll be honest. I was just not paying attention, and that's on me, but uh, you don't need a very good plot to just, keep me hooked. You can just make your most average story and I'll still be hooked, but this game just, I paid no attention at all. The gunplay is your typical but decent Far Cry gunplay. It's addictive at times as well, but the open world is just really forgettable. Like the worst open world in any Far Cry game. And I mean, it is a standalone DLC, so that's to be expected. But I still wonder, why do we have an open world for this game when we go to like only a few locations at most in the story, and most of the map just exists for no reason? The experience, though, just is not bad at all. It has its moments, like killing the blood dragons is fun with your, I forgot the name of the device, but it's like a spinning blade that shoots lasers. That was fun to use, but it's still the most bland Far Cry I have played yet. However, it was meant to be a standalone DLC, so I'll let it slide. So overall, yeah, a short yet bitterly sweet experience. Ape Escape Academy. Please don't judge me for putting this above Blood Dragon, okay? Ape Escape Academy may not seem good, but trust me, it's a pretty fun minigame collection to play with your friends. Now, I don't really have much to say about it because it's just a minigame collection, but unlike its sequel, which played last year, the original is just filled with so much better minigames. Like, I enjoyed a ton more of the minigames here than I did in Ape Academy 2. This game also has a lot of charm and is a decent game to pop up whenever you're bored. It's also Ape Escape, like, you can't just hate Ape Escape. It's too cute. Overall, a shockingly decent minigame collection, and I would say way better than Crash Boom Bang. For a game that tried to bring Ratchet onto a handheld, it did its job very decently, I would say. Of course, it doesn't even compare to the console games, but it's still a short but decent experience for a PSP Ratchet game. The gunplay, while not as good as the console counterparts, is still nice and fun. Story, on the other hand, had a massive dump. Like, what the fuck is this? Now, I don't expect Sony platformers to have good stories, but both Jack and Ratchet have had great stories in their games, so I was let down here massively. But then again, it wasn't made by the same people who made the console Ratchet games, so I can see why it's not as good. There's points where the game gets pretty boring, especially the clank sections. Those are horrible. Least favorite part of the game, and my least favorite clank section ever. And the hoverboard races, I would say those are fun, especially when you find these huge skips, especially in that last race. Oh god, that one was so much fun, just skipping through the huge gap in the space race. Overall, a decent Ratchet experience. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. I wouldn't recommend people to play it, but if you do decide to play it, then there's nothing wrong with it. To all the puzzle game fans, and especially my great friend Victor, I'm very sorry, but I did not enjoy The Witness as much as most others did. However, I am willing to admit that the game is really genius. Like, the puzzles and mechanics are amazing. It's a masterpiece for puzzle gamers, but for me, it's a great game with annoying sections that really hindered my experience. For example, some of the puzzles, like the reflection ones and the hearing ones, were just unfun and quite boring for me, even though I really do like the concept. I just don't like how it was implemented, and that's just on my end, to be honest. It's not the game's fault, it's just me. The end game, however, I just did not enjoy at all. I think it was the worst part of the game, and it was just not enjoyable, and it's the reason that I may never pick this game up again, which is a shame because everything leading up to the end game was just so great. Like, this was handcrafted in such a great manner. It's just the small things that made it fall in the rankings. I'm very sorry, Victor. Sir Lovelot is the most unknown game on this list. I doubt anyone except for myself have played it. However, it's surprisingly good for what I paid for it. Spoiler alert, I paid like $2 for it, which is still a lot for me, but we're gonna let that slide. Anyways, it's a 2D platformer and very, very reminiscent of Celeste for me. At many instances, I was reminded of Celeste, and mostly because of the movement, because the movement system is pretty similar. However, it's limited compared to Celeste, and just it's way harder to get used to because you can't really do both of the special actions together. Like, you can dash and you can double jump, but you can't jump into a dash and then double jump, or double jump and then use a dash, which I think is just, you know, wrong. Like, you should be able to do that. But the movement system is still nice, just a lot harder to get accustomed to, in my opinion. Graphically, it's very charming with its retro art style and character designs. It's a simple game compared to Celeste, but still fun, albeit short. My biggest complaint about the game is some of the enemy placements. God, those are just downright stupid. Especially the skeletons. I have no idea what drug they were using when they were making this game. Because this one issue ruined the game for me in many ways. It could have ranked so much higher if it wasn't for just this one issue. However, for what it did right, it did well and just in a great manner. Play this game if you haven't. Typo Man is a game that I did not have high expectations for, but it surprised me with its amazing concept and really cool gimmicks. Like, seriously, this game just, I love the concept so much. I love the focus it put onto the arrangement of letters and how you can use words to progress further in the game. The platforming may not be great, but the concept itself is so good that I hope they make a sequel that expands on all of this, but just with a better pacing and a better story, because the story in this game was quite well forgettable. The art style also gets a lot of credit for me. I love how this game looks, and I love how just they, what's the word? I love what they did with the concept of letters and alphabets, and it's just anything but bland. I love the idea and concept. Ah, dude, stop. Another puzzle game, yes, I know. However, this time the puzzles are not the main focus of the game, it's the dialogue. And oh man, this game is just so much fun to play through. The Puzzles may be easy, but that's not why I like this game. It's the dialogue and the joy of just annoying the narrator. However, with all good things come a few flaws as well. And my biggest issue is that the game doesn't let you be 100% good for any playthrough. Like, you always have to make choices that are bad, and I think that's just a bit lazy. And if if the devs let us be 100% good, it would have just given the game extra replayability. But for what it is, it's a damn good time. Like, seriously, give this game a shot, everyone, if you haven't heard of it or haven't played it. It's not very long, and it's just a really sweet experience. Now, for my favorite puzzle game, and yes, I swear this is the last puzzle game here, I promise, but it's also the best one here as well. Superliminal isn't just a puzzle game to me because it taught me a valuable lesson, which is to always look at a problem from more than one single angle and to always think outside the box when you're presented with a problem. And I think that this message is just really solid. Uh, and this entire message is also reflected really incredibly in its impressive game design. Like, seriously, the game design is so cool with this game. It plays with your mind and makes you think of clever solutions to the problems you're presented. The design and working of this game is just really impressive and inspiring. Sadly, the game is a bit too short, but I'd rather have it be short and sweet. And if you haven't played Superliminal, then I'd recommend it heavily, because as someone who doesn't really vibe with puzzle games too much, I still found so much joy in this game, and the lesson especially, I loved it. Give it a shot. Clonova Door to Phantom Isle. It's a PS1 classic brought to the PS5 with amazing visuals. However, the gameplay isn't very impressive, at least to me personally. It's a very simple 2D platformer and doesn't bring much to the table other than charming visuals. I do still like this game, believe me. I think it can be fun, I think it's charming, but it just falls into the same category as Pac Man World for me. It's just too simple and generic. Although, being generic isn't a bad thing in my eyes, but it does affect the game a lot and just makes it not as fun as it could have been if it had any original and unique ideas. Now, to the positives, as I said, I love the graphics and art style for this game. The character design is also very cute. The levels are designed nicely for the most part. Some of them were pretty ass, but most of them were fine. I wish I had more to say about this game, but I just really don't. It's a very generic game, but still really charming. A good game overall. Now, Pokemon Generation 1 may be a buggy mess held together by glue and duct tape, but I'll be lying if I said that I didn't enjoy my time with it. The game is unbelievably messy, but it's also quite interesting because of it. There's so many glitches that every time you replay the game, you find new ones that you never knew existed. For example, I discovered that Focus Energy, a move that's supposed to increase your chances of landing a critical hit, instead decreases the chances. Funny, isn't it? And other than that, the sprite work for this game I would also say is very just bad. Most of them look weird and creepy, such as Golbat. But without this game, we wouldn't have Generation 2, which is my personal favorite Pokemon generation. The core gameplay works fine, but if you take a few steps away, you'll stumble into glitches upon glitches and maybe even stumble upon Missing No himself. Now, why did I pick Pokemon Yellow? Simple, I just wanted all of the three starters, but unfortunately, Pikachu is very weak. That's a compromise I had to make, but it was worth the sacrifice for having all three starters on your team. So, overall, I think it's a fine game. I think it's good. I think it's still fun even after all these years. Way better than Kirby's Dream Land for a first game. Oh boy, I'm going to get crucified for this one. So, yeah. Arkham Knight is not really a game I'm too fond of. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot I love about this game, such as the combat and the stealth, which are at their best in this series. The graphics are amazing and they still rival games that come out to this day. The ending is also great, and I'm a big fan of how this game ends. But unfortunately, I have too many problems with this game. First of all, the story is very disappointing compared to the previous three entries. But what's worse is that I could feel and sense fragments of an amazing story here. The story that could have been, but we never got. The other issue I have is that this game uses the Batmobile way too much for my liking. I groaned every time I saw that car, which is sad because I think controls fine and its gameplay isn't that bad. It's just it got used way too much that it overshadowed Batman's own gameplay. The boss fights suck straight up. This might be an opinion you disagree with. Well, the entire rant I'm doing here you might disagree with, but the boss fights suck in my opinion straight up. The worst in the series, worse than Asylum's. I am going to die on that hill. I think the bosses in this game are worse than the bosses in Asylum. Overall, I am very disappointed by this game because even though I give it almost an 8 out of 10, it's still a very low point for the Arkham games in my rankings and is the worst ranking Arkham game in my list by quite a large margin. I'm sorry, Night fans, but I did not like this game. Okay, listen, before you dislike the video for the fact that I put Dexter above Arkham Knight, just let me speak, okay? I had no expectations for Dexter when I went into it, but I had a lot of expectations for Arkham Knight, which is why it ranked lower than Dexter for me. But, anyways, back to topic. Dexter is a similar case to Clonova for me, where I think it's basic and generic, but I love the characters, I love the dialogue, and I really like the gameplay a lot more here than I did with Clonova. The spray gun, the main weapon you have in this game, is very fun to use. The section where you use the vehicle through Breeze Valley is one of my favorite moments in the series. The story itself, I thought, was enjoyable. It holds up way better than size matters and looks very pretty for a PSP game. Dexter is also just really funny in my opinion, and I think this game is a nice way to fill the gap between Jack 1 and Jack 2. Now, Battle for Bikini Bottom isn't a game I like. I think it was decent, but nothing I'd replay for fun. It was just way too basic and boring for me. However, Cosmic Shake, on the other hand, took the original game and made it way more enjoyable, way better, and just it made the gameplay a lot more fun and smooth. The levels, while lesser in quantity, make up for it with their length and their quality. The levels are really good here, just basically. The boss fights are also better than the original game, and it also has a bigger difficulty curve than the original ever did, which was just really basic and easy the whole way. I love Cosmic Shake, and I think it's way better than its prequel. Oh, and let's not forget that this game is very funny and just full of SpongeBob references. If you're a fan like me, you will love this game. So give it a try if you haven't already. And if you didn't enjoy Battle for Bikini Bottom, then you may just like this. I can't guarantee, but I think it's a lot better than the original. There he is, the man of the hour himself, Kratos. Before making this video, I had this game ranked a bit lower. However, after I played the original Devil May Cry for a few levels, I started to respect God of War a lot more, which means that I did not enjoy Devil May Cry. God of War 2005 has really fluid combat, great moves, amazing boss fights, a good set of controls as well, which I wouldn't say the same for Devil May Cry. The camera is also way better than the original DMC here. It doesn't get in your way as much, and it didn't make me die to enemies a lot. The game also has amazing boss fights. Now, there's only like three boss fights I know, but they're easily the highlights of the game. The Hydra, the Minotaur, and especially Ares, just great boss fights, all of them. The only part of the game I disliked was the whole middle bit with the Pandora Temple. It lasted way too long and killed the entire flow and pacing, but the game makes up for it with its brilliant story, really addictive gameplay, and just being a really fun time. Thanks God of War. Without you, I wouldn't have God of War 3, 2018, or Ragnarok. I was never as much of a 2D Sonic fan as most other people were, or still are. Like, sure, I think Sonic 2 and 3 are good games, but they never felt great to me. I never thought they were as great as people said they were. I thought the first entry in the series was decent, but very overrated even for its time, as it focused too much on platforming over speed. You know, the thing Sonic is known for. But Mania was a slam dunk for me. Amazing level design, great soundtrack, great visuals and art style, crazy boss fights. This game basically combined all of the best aspects of 2D Sonic into one neat package. I highly recommend you try Mania out if you haven't, because this game made me love 2D Sonic despite all odds. As for my favorite levels, I would say Studiopolis, Hydrocity, and Stardust Speedway, but I would also give an honorable mention to Press Garden, Mirage Saloon, Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Flying Battery. If I had three words to describe Hellsinger, it would be Doom with rhythm. I love, and I mean I love how they implemented the rhythm mechanics into the Doom like gameplay. It just fits so well and it does not feel out of place at all or awkward. It gives the game a sense of uniqueness to it that most Doom clones just lack. The soundtrack is also just fantastic. I prefer this game's soundtrack over every single Doom game soundtrack ever. Stygia is my favorite level in the game because of just how beautiful its track is. And the one complaint I have about the game is that it's very short, but it's worth the money. It's way worth it. It is a great set of weapons for you to use and chain combos with. The game is just really, really great, but it just doesn't rival the radical levels of Doom itself, even if its soundtrack outclasses Doom in every way. Sackboy is just overflowing with so much charm that it's impossible to not enjoy this game if you're someone like me and really loves 3D platformers even if they're slow. Like, this is one of the most underrated games I've played, and I just don't get why people don't like it. Sure, it's easy, yes, it's slow, but it's also very fun and it's varied with its gameplay as well. The art direction is just splendid, the game looks beautiful and breathtaking. The game does suffer from the same problem as Clonoa and Daxter with not much uniqueness going for it, but I'd still say the mechanics that were shown were still really fun to use. The level design is great, and I think the villain is the highlight of the game. He's a ton of fun. Just he's the kind of villain that I want to voice act for. Please give this game a shot if you haven't. I really recommend it. It's a great platformer. Ah, Medieval. The last game left before we enter the games that I truly love. Medieval is incredibly underappreciated and it just pisses me off at how no one talks about this game. It's a wonderful gem from the PS1 era brought to the modern age with gorgeous graphics, gameplay tweaks, and intense charm. This game removed most of the jank the original game had, and I mean, I still think there's some jank here and there, but it's nowhere near as much. The gameplay is basic, yes, it's not something excellent, but I would be lying if I said that I didn't have a smile on my face despite it all. I was overflowing with joy while experiencing this gem that people just walk over, they ignore it, and it makes me really sad. I really wished we had a Medieval 2 remake as well. Thanks, Sony, for nothing. I was not expecting Metro 2033 to be as amazing as it ended up being. From afar, this game looked nothing special, but I was really caught off guard by the great story, the amazing atmosphere, the element of horror, and the cool stealth sections. The gunplay, while janky, adds to the game's atmosphere, and I love that they're very weird and difficult to control compared to guns in like Call of Duty and other series. It just fits the world a lot more. I also love how many smaller mechanics this game has, like the morality system. You don't get to see any points, etc. Regarding this system. Is just something that is not shown to you, but it happens and is changing throughout the game depending on your actions. And another mechanic I really like is that you can just recharge your flashlight by pressing one of the buttons on the D-pad. I think that one's really fun and just a small neat thing. And of course, there's other smaller ones as well, which I temporarily forgot. I really can't wait to play Last Light because Metro 2033 was just that awesome. Truly a great game. I loved it. Now we're talking. Doom Eternal. Oh, this game is just pure chaotic fun. This is Doom at its very best. I really like Doom 2016, but this game just takes the crown. This is my favorite Doom of all time. This is better than Doom 93 for me, which was my favorite Doom before this one. Just for simply being the best of its franchise and also one of the greatest shooters of all time in general. Just wow, what a game. The varied arsenal, the great soundtrack, the cool enemy designs, the level design itself, the overwhelming amount of ways to deal damage, the incredible movement. It all adds up to make a fantastic experience with fantastic gameplay and a great final boss to end off the entire adventure with. Without a doubt, one of the greatest shooters of all time, if not the greatest. Now, I can't really begin to explain how much I love Sly 1, mainly because I just don't know how to express myself on this one, but this game just caught me by surprise. Just like the original Ratchet and Jack games, Sly is as good, if not on par with them. Sly 1 is stealth focused and also a platformer, which is a combination I never really thought would work, but it worked out very well. I think this game is an absolute blast to play through. And I am someone who takes my platformers very seriously, so me saying that Sly 1 is really great does mean something. It reminded me of Crash 1 at multiple instances with its corridor like level design. That's not a bad thing, of course. However, the art style, amazing. I love it. I love how the game looks. I love the art style. It just makes me feel like I'm playing a comic book. The only part of this game I did not enjoy were the race sections, but they just they do not lower the magnitude of awesomeness that this game has. Just simply an amazing platformer, and I cannot wait to play Sly 2 and Sly 3. Fucking love this game. Now, breaking into the top 10 is Far Cry 5. Now, as someone who thinks Far Cry 3 is good but not great, I think Far Cry 5 is the best one in the franchise and it's not even close. What this game did right was never done again with Far Cry 6 or any other Far Cry game that came after it. I'm not really up to date how many came after it. Oh yeah, New Dawn and 6. The story was just amazing, wonderful, handled so well, the best in the series. I know this is a controversial opinion, but I really think that Far Cry 5 just outclasses both 3 and 4 in every way. It's just that good. The Seed brothers, the main villains, are awful people, and that's what makes them great villains. Especially Jacob Seed. I thought his whole mission line was just genius. Absolute genius. The quality of life changes made in this game were also greatly appreciated. The open world was at its best, the graphics were amazing, and the ending was really unexpected. I was not expecting how this game ended, but I don't dislike the ending either. The soundtrack is also the best one of the bunch. The gunplay too is at its best here, with how great it handles and feels to shoot. Just simply an amazing game. Thank you, Ubisoft. Actually, no, fuck you, Ubisoft. From a disappointment on the same level as Arkham Knight to just a straight up banger of a game. What a journey this game has went through. Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal feels unfinished and unfocused at so many instances, yet it's still such an amazing game. It's just like Crash to Insanity, where it feels so incomplete and a lot of content was cut, yet it's still so just great, such a fun experience. The gameplay here is so strong that I don't even care about the flaws. The story started off weird, but eventually picked itself up and concluded with a great boss fight, and I would say it's the best boss fight in the trilogy. The variety of weapons here is also great. The shock cannon, N60 Storm, multi disc gun, liquid nitrogen gun, just such a great arsenal of weapons. It's called Up Your Arsenal for a reason, and this game is also just absolutely hilarious. However, it's not the best Ratchet game I played this year. Elder Scrolls 5, Todd Howard's Darling. I'll be honest, this game turned out way better than I was expecting. Especially after how I did not enjoy Fallout 4 at all. I think that game just sucks. It's very, very mediocre. Skyrim, however, is far from that. I think Skyrim is amazing. It took me 13 whole years before I finally played this game properly, and I don't regret it at all. The open world is one of my favorites. I love the whole medieval theme, the aesthetics, the world building, the characters. It's all done superbly. The whole world is so lively and there's so many great quests, each one better than the last. The main story, well, I'll admit, is just alright, but it's the side content where the game truly shines. It's such a fun time exploring every new location and quest. And mind you, I don't play long games much, but this is one of the games I sunk a lot more hours into because of just how much I loved it. The combat is fun, the RPG mechanics are great, but that's not what I play this game for. I play it for everything else: the world building, the open world itself, the quests, and just the whole feel of the game. I can't believe it took me 13 damn years before I finally took a piece of this pie. Now, I hate Ubisoft a lot, but even I'll admit that they used to make fantastic games. What happened? Now, I'm not a big fan of Assassin's Creed 2, but Brotherhood and Revelations are games that I hold very dear to me, and I think Black Flag is better than all of them. And that's a very high bar in my eyes because I really love Revelations. But Black Flag beat it this year. This game lets me be a pirate. Finally, now I can be a pirate both inside the game and in real life. Fitting, isn't it? The story made me feel many emotions, mostly just sadness and sorrow. The cast of characters is the best one I've seen in an AC game so far, and also in just general one of my favorite casts. The naval combat is tons of fun. It's really cool to just fight other ships, and the battles with the legendary ships are just amazing. The ground exploration slash combat too is enjoyable, but not as good as the naval combat, I will admit. The story is really engaging and gave me a great lesson to appreciate what I have instead of ignoring it all to try and achieve something that is out of my reach. And I think that's a great lesson, and I owe it to Black Flag for teaching me this really valuable lesson. Thank you, Black Flag. I love you, but I really hate you, creators. Yes, I don't give two shits. Arkham Origins is fantastic and way superior to Arkham Knight. I will die on this hill. I don't care. Origins has the best story and the best set of bosses in the entire series, hands down, other than Mr. Freeze from Arkham City. The game has an angrier and even more brutal version of Batman who is extremely aggressive towards everyone, and I think that's such a great characterization and portrayal of Batman. It's one I rarely see. My favorite bosses in the game were hands down Deathstroke and Firefly for sure. But Bane is also amazing, way better than his boss fight back in Asylum. Origins is not just the most underrated Arkham game, it's one of the most underrated games of all time. And the only reason it's not my favorite Arkham game is because the open world was really forgettable. But that aside, it's a brilliant piece of art. It's such an amazing game, and I really wish it gets a remaster. Ratchet and Clank going commando. I was not expecting to love Ratchet 2 this damn much, but here we are. It's easily my favorite of the trilogy by far, due to just the great story, the best level design in the trilogy, amazing gunplay, and a really good cast of characters. It felt finished, unlike Ratchet 3, which my main complaint was that Ratchet 3 felt like it wasn't given the proper time, it wasn't cooked enough, as kids call it these days. But Ratchet 2 feels finished, it feels complete, other than the final boss fight, which is like a big dump. But we'll just ignore that. The game has a better soundtrack than Ratchet 1 and Ratchet 3, and also the newer games. The strafing mechanic was such a huge addition that shaped the series forever, and I'm glad they introduced it because the lack of strafing in Ratchet 1 was just very painful. I also really enjoyed the space missions too, even though I've seen a lot of people shit on them. I thought they were still fun. My favorite weapon in the game has to be the bouncer. It's extremely powerful, broken weapon, and it's the only reason I beat like half the game, especially Bolden City. That level was so damn difficult. I just can't believe just how fantastic Ratchet 2 really is. It's insane. I'm like in love with this game. Honorable mention time. I'll be brief here because I plan to make a separate video on this game, but Sonic Adventure is a fucking masterpiece and the best game I replayed this year, easily not even close. What a banger of a game, and I cannot wait to finally get into this juicy piece of media once I'm done with this video. Now, anyways, back to the top 4 games of 2024 in my opinion. The number 4 spot goes to Shovel Knight. A 2D masterpiece that I did not see coming at all. Sure, I heard about how good Shovel Knight is, but I never thought it would be as good as it turned out to be. I'm genuinely stunned. When I booted this game up for the first time and I finished the first level, I was in genuine awe. Like, I was shocked by how much fun I was having because I'm mostly someone who doesn't tend to like indie games as much as other people, but this one is just such an amazing game. The visuals are just so good and reminiscent of the old retro games like Mega Man and Tiny Toon. Really solid gameplay, great level design, good story, amazing boss fights, amazing character designs. All of the knights look amazing. This 2D indie has it all. It's my favorite indie game of all time, and the only game to rival this one is Cuphead. And I really, really love Cuphead. So you can tell just how much I love Shovel Knight. Alright, boys, now we're on Bloodborne. Top 3. This right here is character development because I never thought I would ever finish a Souls game in my life. But I am glad, so glad I played Bloodborne. This game is a masterpiece on almost every level. The gameplay is addictingly sweet and so satisfying to master. The selection of incredible weapons and builds gives tons of replayability, and every weapon and build is viable in this game. That's what I love about it. You can just choose any weapon and just beat the game with it. My personal favorite is the saw cleaver, and I still use it to this day over any other weapon, even Ludwig's Holy Blade, which, well, is my secondary weapon that I use for just certain enemies. Now, the world and atmosphere is immersive and breathtaking. The lore is amazingly interesting. Is that even a word? And let's not forget the incredible boss fights. One of the best lineup of bosses I faced in any video game ever, hands down. I don't regret playing this game, and I owe it all to a friend of mine whom I started this game for. Thanks a lot, random friend. Now, I can talk about this game for so long and I can gush over it non stop, but I'll keep it short. Ragnarok was my most anticipated game for the 2 years that it took for me to play it. I am a massive fan of the 2018 God of War game, and I also really love God of War 3. And this game did not disappoint me even slightly. Ragnarok is a bloody masterpiece, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Sure, it has some flaws here and there, but the overall experience is just so amazing. The fantastic and fluid combat, the engaging story, the best cast of characters I've ever met, the scale, the set pieces, the boss fights, the graphics, the everything is just perfect. I can't think of a single thing I dislike about this game, which is just insane to me because I remember that I was really scared to try this game because I heard a lot of people thought it wasn't as good as 2018, but I am not one of them. I think this is the best God of War game, and the DLC just further made me love this game even more. Now, a special shout out to my friend, my co host, and my really, really, really well, what's the word again? Yeah, co- good companion, Victor, for sharing this game to me. You're the best, Victor. I love Denmark. Now, despite being so damn perfect in my eyes, it's still not the best game I've played this year. That title is reserved for a game that means more than any other game to me ever. 12 years. 12 long and painful years of waiting, longing, yearning, and hoping. Hoping that this day would finally come. In my life, I never thought the day would come when I finally lay my hands on this gem, this beautiful, beautiful piece of art. Epic Mickey is my new favorite game of all time. The emotions I felt while playing this game cannot be defined. Joy, sorrow, nostalgia all at once. A surprisingly great story that made me feel like a kid all over again, playing Epic Mickey 2 for the first time back then in 2012. Since then, I hoped and hoped and hoped again that I will get a chance to experience the original game, and it finally happened. Right after I finished Ragnarok, they dropped the trailer. It could not have been a more perfect timing. There's so much love and care put into this game, and I am just incredibly overjoyed that I finally played this masterpiece. I might be getting a bit emotional, but that's because of just how connected I am to Epic Mickey. The second game was a huge part of my childhood. I spent more than 400 hours on that game, and I know Epic Mickey 2 of all games really, but I just loved it that much. And Epic Mickey, the original, finally being on PS4, just I was so happy. I was so overjoyed. I cannot explain enough just how happy I was because I bought this game full price, pre ordered. I never do that. I never uh, pre order, I never buy games for full price, and I don't even buy games anymore. But this was an exception. This is Epic fucking Mickey. Thank you, Epic Mickey. To me, you're not just another 10 out of 10 masterpiece game, but you are a rare game to me that comes only once a generation. Thank you, and I love you. Now, anyways, I'd also like to thank all of you for watching this video, for listening to me ramble about games for I don't know 50 minutes I guess, and I owe you all a lot for just giving me your time and just spending it with me. Thank you. I put a lot of effort into making this video, and I really hope you had a good time with me. I care about all of you, and I wish all of you a great day and a great life. See you soon. Goodbye. Allah Hafiz.